to my channel. My name is Savannah, and if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. In today's video, we're going to look at one of Jesus' parables and discover the lesson he was teaching. At first glance, it may be easy to understand the principle here, but there is actually a deeper meaning that we're going to find. Starting in Luke chapter 7, verse 36, we read, "One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. And behold, a woman of the city, who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at a table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment, and standing behind him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, 'If this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner.' And Jesus, answering, said to him, 'Simon, I have something to say to you.' And he answered, 'Say it, teacher.' A certain moneylender had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now which of them will love him more? Simon answered, 'The one, I suppose, for whom he canceled the larger debt.' And he said to him, 'You have judged rightly.' Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, 'Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little.' And he said to her, 'Your sins are forgiven.'" I love this parable, and for the longest time, I didn't understand what the real spiritual principle was. I thought, okay, so the person who has committed many sins and is forgiven will love Jesus more than the person who is forgiven for committing less sins. But that's actually not the lesson here. The point is not to compare the sins objectively, but subjectively. Jesus is referring to how each person perceives their sin. Simon, the owner of the home, is a self-righteous Pharisee who didn't perceive himself to be a sinner. His attitude was probably one of, "Sure, I was born with original sin, and sure, I do things that God doesn't like, just like everybody else, but I wash my hands, I follow the food laws, I do all of the outward stuff, for the most part. Compared to everyone else, I'm a good person, and at least I'm not as bad as this woman." And by his self-justification, he's the one who doesn't perceive his sin, or in the parable, his debt, to be large. He might admit, if someone really presses him, that he sinned, but he really doesn't see himself as a sinner. He sees himself as a good person who doesn't need to be forgiven of much. And Jesus picked up on that, which is why he told this parable. So my question to you is, how do you perceive yourself? Have you been forgiven much? Or do you need to be forgiven much? Or have you been forgiven little because you're not that bad of a sinner? And your answer will be in direct proportion to your gratitude and attitude towards Jesus. Notice what this woman did for Jesus. Notice how much honor and respect and love she had for him. And then notice what Simon the Pharisee did. He didn't even give Jesus the expected customary respect, and this was because of how he perceived himself. Y'all, to be honest, before I was saved, I was a fake Christian. I was going to church, doing all of the outward things. I knew Jesus died on the cross for my sins, but I really didn't think it was that big of a deal because I perceived myself to be in this group of good people, and my love for Jesus was in direct proportion to that. But when God's law really confronted me and I understood that it wasn't just about outward actions, but my inward thoughts as well, and that I would have to stand in front of a holy and perfect God one day, I understood that when Jesus gave up his life on the cross to pay for my debt, it is the biggest deal because that debt was incredibly high, and now I am forever grateful. The real spiritual principle taught here in this parable is that the person who perceives he's been forgiven much loves much, and the person who perceives he's been forgiven little loves little. Well, that's all I have for today's video. I thank y'all so much for watching. I will see y'all in my next video. And as always, don't forget to thank God for waking up this morning.